Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sports Shorts Daily, presented by good friends over at La Berge Casino. Ronnie Rance alongside Tommy Krysan over at Court Street Cafe in Port Allen. Happy New Year to everyone. Our first show of the 2024 calendar year. TK and I with a little week and a half off with the holidays. We're presented by Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. Got a big event coming up next Tuesday I'm going to tell you about. But TK, Happy New Year to you. Happy holidays. A lot to get to in a short amount of time. So let's go right ahead. First off, LSU with an exciting game. They come from behind. They do not cover for those bettors that thought they were going to win easily. I know you and I thought they were going to cover. A lot of people did. They did not cover. But that said, they were down 14-0. They came back. They won. And the future looks bright, at least at quarterback, with the Nuss bus. Garrett Nussmeier did his thing, threw for nearly 400 yards, had 3 touchdowns. But more importantly, when they were trailing, brought them back. When they needed to go down and get a score, went 98 yards. He lived up to what the hope was. I think, the future's bright at quarterback for LSU.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, he looked like a guy who was doing his first start. There was some passes where you went, oops, and a couple of times he took a sack when, ideally you step up or you get rid of the ball. But overall, he played well. He led the team on a long drive, and I thought he became more effective and threw the ball down the field. He's got a big arm. We know that. But, there was a couple of times at 3rd and 10, they throw the ball 3 yards. 3rd and 6, they throw the ball 2 yards. You got to throw it to the chains, more times than not. Because they want you to catch it 2 yards and get you on the ground. But he started throwing the ball downfield with the talented receivers. And he got it done. Let him on a game-winning drive, if you will. It has to do a lot for his confidence and the confidence of the team around him. Malik Neighbors breaks Josh Reed's record and then puts street clothes on for the second half. We expected that. Brian Thomas declares for the NFL draft. Mekhi Wingo to the draft. That's all part of it. Shouldn't surprise anybody. And I'll never fault a kid for making a decision to go try to make more money because they're already making. I used to say make money back in the college days when they weren't legally making money. They might have had this or that under the table. But so, it is what it is. And now the big thing is you got to establish an offensive coordinator. I know Kelly said he was going to evaluate Sloan and Hankton, who kind of did the job together against Wisconsin. And then you got to, is anything going to happen with the defensive staff and the defensive coordinator? Brian Kelly was in the Advocate newspaper yesterday. He was going to evaluate everybody, which is what he's going to say. He's going to evaluate every coach, including himself, about how can we be better, what can we do. I suspect we're going to get some announcements this week. Now, the other thing is, you don't really make an announcement until you got the next person in place. So I believe that's what he's been working on since the bowl game. Again, they got the 10 wins. That was a goal of the team, and that is a watermark. That is a measuring stick, and that's a good one. So the recruiting classes went well. The portal is apparently going down. They got the big defensive line from lineman from McKinley. So, it's from Acadiana. His name's McKinley, from Acadiana, the Wrecking Rams. So things are looking good. Be an interesting spring practice. And then next year, where there's one heck of a schedule.
The LSU in the bowl game, I thought they got better as the game went on. But look, the defense is still a problem. The defense was exposed against Wisconsin. Of course, they rised up and they made the 3 sacks in a row to end the game to save them, to win the game in essence. Kind of reminded you of like Missouri or a lot of the games, Ole Miss and others. It's back and forth and high scoring. But and that to me is the concern. LSU's been pretty slow. Only got 5 transfer portal players, and they're not really expected to go. They might get another 1 or 2, maybe after the spring. You might get somebody. So you're kind of going with these young cats. You had a good recruiting class last year. You like your recruiting class this year. You don't have the money, quite frankly, that some of the bigger pots have. You don't have, the multi-millions of dollars to go be crazy aggressive in the portal. You can't keep up with the Georgias and the Alabamas and the Texas A&Ms when it comes to portal money. It's just a fact. And so that makes me a little leery. I'm curious what they do on defense. If they don't make any changes at those coaching positions. I think folks are going to be a little bit nervous going into next year with all these young players, with a defense that was so bad this year. If you don't make a change at coordinator or on that staff with some coaches, then you're going to probably think it's going to be more of the same.
I would agree, and I think the fans are looking for it. It's up to Brian Kelly. You got to defer to him. He's a coach whose track record speaks for himself. And if he thinks sticking with Matt House, maybe making some other changes, whatever he thinks is best, you got to go with. But I find it hard to believe that you can stick with Matt House and others on the staff. If you look at the statistics and you look at the numbers, and this is not like a one-game thing or a certain team, exposed a weakness. This was all week, including Wisconsin. The Wisconsin quarterback threw 6 touchdowns all year, and he had 3 in this game. I mean, they aren't known for throwing touchdown passes, and that guy was carving up the LSU defense and guys running wide open. And I don't mean busting coverages. I'm talking about, somebody slipping down. I mean, that was just – they had a good game plan, and, Wisconsin just didn't have the horses necessary to beat LSU, but they damn near did, because of the defense of LSU. The LSU offense was what it was, and Nussmeier on the job training, if you will. But that was tough to watch in some regards, the LSU game. But they found a way to win, and that was the goal.
All right, so LSU gets to the 10-win plateau, which is kind of like the appeasement number. You win 10 games, people, you go 10-3. People are like, okay, all right, that's about what we're supposed to do. I think 10-3 next year is going to be a pretty good accomplishment. You look at their schedule. You play USC and UCLA. Neither of those teams scare you, but they're more than capable. And which USC team you're going to get and all that kind of stuff, and who's going to actually be the quarterback. And I mean, obviously the guy who filled in for Williams did a heck of a job in the bowl game. So that, you go 1-1 maybe, there. You got Oklahoma on your schedule. That looks good as a name, but they're not, they didn't look good down the stretch. They had a lot of defections. You get them at home, I think, but so you feel good about Oklahoma. You're probably not going to beat Ole Miss. Ole Miss got the quarterback back, got a ton of weapons. You did beat them this year. You're not going to be favored against Alabama. So the reality is that I think if LSU goes 9-3 next year and does the same thing they did this year during the regular season, pretty okay with that. I don't think it's a championship season next year. It would really come out of nowhere and surprise me if they ended up, 11-1 or something. I think 9-3 is kind of the over-under bar.
I think that's very accurate here in early January, knowing you don't have the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, you don't have Neighbors, you don't have Thomas. You got some, Wingo's not going to come back on defense, but, he was hurt a lot. He didn't play a lot of all the games. So I think that's fair to say that now today. Now, you could reserve the right to change that in August, where you maybe think it becomes something a little different. But keep in mind, there's 12 teams in the playoffs. You would think 3 SEC teams would figure into that 12. But you got Oklahoma and Texas in the SEC. I figured 3 minimum. And then the bowl games. What's going to happen to bowl games? A lot of conversation about that, with what we saw this year and all the bowl games with the poor attendance. And, there was a handful of games very competitive, but a lot of the games were total blowouts. And I'm not just talking about Georgia and Florida State. Other games that were just totally one-sided for lots of reasons. So, I think you saying 9-3 is a good goal. I think that's a good January goal, and reserve the right to change your mind once we get to August.
The bowl games are a disaster. We all understand why they do them. It's a paid-for-TV, gig. It's a situation where, the sponsors and ESPN needs programming, and the sponsors are doing what they need to do to put on a program. And the coaches and the teams generally like the bowl games because coaches are incentivized by bowl games. So you play in a bowl game, you get a bonus. The other thing is you get extra practices. You play in a bowl game, you get those X amount of extra practices, which go a long way for making your team better for next year. It's kind of a benchmark. You got to minimally make a bowl game to kind of keep the dogs off of you. That's usually how it goes. But where we're headed right now is this it's kind of like in my mind, it's sort of an example of where we are as a country, right? We're extreme one way or the other. We're extreme left or we're extreme right with our political beliefs, and that's where we are with these bowl games, Tommy. We're extreme. We're gonna be all about the playoffs and the top 12 teams next year, and that's going to be the biggest thing on the planet. And you're going to have home games the first round of the playoffs, which is incredible. I can't imagine LSU hosting a playoff game at home. How amazing that would be in Tiger Stadium. So you're going to have this one extreme that college football is going to be as great as ever when it comes to postseason. And on the other, you're not even going to care about the Sugar Bowl. The Sugar Bowl next year, it's because it's not tied in with the playoffs. Who even cares? And that used to be a giant deal.
Well, Ronnie, here's a great analogy. I heard somebody say it during the course of all this bowl conversation. You remember 15 or 20 years ago when spring games were a big thing? I mean, LSU used to charge like $5-10 to get into the spring game and talk about how many people came to the game. All schools did that. That was a big thing. When in spring practice kind of turned into the spring game being nothing but a fancy practice, offense versus defense, a crazy point system of how to forget a winner, just trying, Well, now the bowl games look like the old spring practice games. It was a game. You had referees, you had the clock running, you had the score going. It's like the spring practice games of yesteryear, that's what it was in so many cases, and not just Florida State. And Georgia had a lot of opt-outs that game too. But other teams that just were totally different when they showed up in bowl, kind of like LSU in the Texas Bowl a few years back. Okay, but only had 39 scholarship players dressed out. That was like a spring practice game. So something's got to be done. Many coaches have made comments about this. Something's got to be fixed. It's going to be fixed now. Something's got to happen in the next 30 to 60 days to say, here's going to be a new and improved, 12-team playoff, and here's the bowl games. And you may have to go on campus with these bowl games to try to get attendance. ESPN's the one suffering. They put out the billions of dollars for this bowl contract. I think they televise all but one or two of the bowls on one of their platforms. They got to be crying in their coffee because it is going south, TV ratings, attendance-wise. You got so many new sponsors. It was cool to see the Pop-Tart Bowl and to eat the Pop-Tart mascot. That was clever, okay? And I got the most talk of the 41 bowl games, or 43, whatever it was, got the most talk. So that was a clever marketing thing. But there was some other bowls. One was sponsored by some resort in Arizona that I never heard of until I saw the commercial. But, it's just, I don't know, the tipping point, sooner or later, the money's going to matter, or lack thereof.
Yeah. And just I look at, for example, the Raging Cajuns, Lafayette. They went and lost to Jacksonville State in a bowl game, and this was, I don't know, like the seventh time maybe that UL's been in the New Orleans Bowl.
Seven times in New Orleans.
I look back, how you have memories that pop up on your Facebook or whatever, or your phone, and I had gone to a UL game, one of the bowl games, like, I don't know, like 7 years ago or 6. It wasn't the first one. It was like like it might have been New Orleans Bowl 2 or 3, something like that. And I had taken a picture. I'd been sat in a suite and I had taken a picture of like the field or the crowd, or, just kind of a generic picture of the whole atmosphere. And there were, fans in the loge, the middle section of the Superdome. I don't even think they opened the loge for the New Orleans Bowl this year. It looked like a high school state championship game between, two big high schools, as far as that went. They didn't even open the loge. And so and I don't know that I necessarily blame the Raging Cajun fans. You'd like for them to care more, to go 2 hours down the road and want to, spend a little time in New Orleans, maybe spend the night, maybe go down there. It's indoors. It doesn't matter the weather. Like, you would hope that that annual pilgrimage would mean more to the fans, but clearly it doesn't. And if I'm the New Orleans Bowl, you need to stop taking the Raging Cajuns. They've taken them and when they could have maybe taken other teams because they feel like, okay, well, they're right down the road. They're going to sell some tickets. I'm here to tell you, Jacksonville State had more fans than UL did. And Jacksonville State at least is going to spend the night a couple times or once or whatever. Raging Cajuns are driving in and driving out for the most part.
Well, that's the point. It was a 1:15 game, a 1:30 kickoff. A lot of Raging Cajun fans just drove in that day, went to the game, and drove home. which part of the bowl thing is to fill up local hotels and restaurants and, businesses and, people stopping at the bargains, pregame drinks. Well, a lot of Raging Cajuns fans just rolled in, went to the game, rolled back to Lafayette. So it's a double-edged sword there. And not a lot of them went. As you said, Jacksonville State, first bowl ever. That probably had a little something to do with the attendance for them. School, proud alumni and families, students, whatever, said, hey, it's the first time ever in a bowl game. Let's go to New Orleans. It ain't that far. 5-6 hours they had to drive. So that was part of the reason they had the bigger crowd. But you're right. I mean, all these bowl games, but see, the NCAA, they have a leader, Charlie Baker is his name. Well, they don't have any leadership. They don't have anybody that's going to say, okay, I'm going to have a press conference and tell everybody I'm going to be back in touch in 30 days or 60 days from now with a new plan. They don't do that. Just like they didn't get in front of NIL. The transfer portal is a mess. I mean, it's just NCAA. No clue at all. That's the acronym there. For those of you that didn't go to Jesuit, acronym means NCAA. Those that did go to Jesuit, I got to tell you about that. But anyway, so it's a mess. It's really unfortunate because college football, like 3-4 years ago, the height of the passion, the attendance, the TV ratings, it was, it's not going to catch the NFL, but it was a big, big thing. Now, and there's a lot of reasons, from conference realignment to the portal, to coaching salaries, to the NIL, to, it's just, there's lots of reasons why it's changed. And I don't know that it's all for the good.
How about the irony of the whole conference realignment that the Pac-12 might win a national championship and then their conference is not even going to be around next year?
Well, technically, Washington represents the Pac-12. That's no doubt.
I mean, that's unbelievable. No SEC in the championship game. You got Washington and taking on Michigan. And Washington, who's a 5-point dog, who I actually have a little small ticket. I put $30 down to win $200 a few weeks ago on Washington if they won the national championship. The bottom line is that, Washington has a good chance to win this game. There's no home field advantage. They're not taking on Texas, and Texas isn't, in their backyard. That's Alabama's not right. It's two teams that have to fly in a long way to go to the national championship games. So no home field advantage. And if Washington wins the national championship, the Pac-12 gets to celebrate for a few weeks before they just disintegrate as a conference.
Well, but they already got the Big Ten putting it out that there's 2 Big Ten teams in the final.
Right.
Washington next July 1. I mean, it's crazy. It's kind of like when Central Florida declared themselves national champs. Okay, no, it's not a Big Ten team. As of next Monday night, Washington's a member of the Pac-12, but it is part of the headache or head scratching element that's involved in college football these days. And I'll tell you what, Michael Penix Jr., I see why he got a lot of Heisman votes.
Yeah,
I'd only watched him in that Oregon, Pac-12 championship game, and I was impressed that night. Can't say I watched a whole lot other than some highlight clips, but in watching that game the other night, I got through some passes that made a lot of people that they could throw down. And, I don't know. I kind of like Washington plus the points just because he's so dynamic, kind of different, and he's not going to run as much as Jaden Daniels did, but he's going to play in the NFL for a long time. I can tell you that.
He can sling it. The Indiana transfer who, got off to an unbelievable start to the season. Then he kind of slowed down a little bit. They were winning, obviously. And, I mean, the incredible thing is they've had 10 wins by a touchdown or less this year. I mean, that is unbelievable focus, concentration, leadership. You got to credit the coaches. You got to credit Penix, that to be able to not have a bobble in those close games and to pressure bust pipes, the old saying, and to not have to ever blink is impressive. And I think it's going to be an interesting, unique style, more smash mouth by Michigan. They can throw it when they need to, obviously. Jim Harbaugh, regardless of what you think of him, he's a quirky dude. He's like the guy everybody loves to hate, especially in the Big Ten. Here's another story is, will he even be back next year? A few weeks ago, everybody was thinking he was going.
I think he'll be gone. I think he'll be in the San Diego Chargers. He'll go because he knows that Michigan's going to get hammered. He knows he's going to get hammered. They're going to have to vacate the title. If they win it next Monday, they'll end up having to vacate it in the future. So he knows all that. Just like Pete Carroll knew Southern Cal was in for a world of a mess when they took the trophy from Reggie Bush and they made them, reduce scholarships and all that. That's why he left for the NFL. Harbaugh, I think, is going to do the same thing. Now, if he stays at Michigan, I will have been wrong.
Yeah. What we don't know, and he's not one who expresses himself very clearly. It aggravates the crap out of me after every game when he does the post-game interviews on the field and he answers a question real short and then he says, "Hey, talk to this guy," and he runs off. He does it every single time.
He's trying to deflect questions about,
But he's been like that, Tommy. It was even before all this stuff.
True.
He was like that, and
but there's been stuff since he's been at Michigan.
Yeah, listen, you don't have to ever answer a question. They ask you a question and you praise your team, and they ask you another question, you praise your team, and then they'll move on from you. It's just, come on, man. Everybody's got a job to do, and he's just difficult. But he can't take anything away from the fact that he's a stud of a coach. He was a hell of a coach in the NFL. He's a hell of a coach in college football. And look how Michigan and Ohio State have swapped just in the last 3 years. There was a stretch there with Harbaugh where he'd win just about every game except Ohio State. And then it was like, well, he can't win the big one. And now he dominates Ohio State to the point where Ohio State is talking about making a coaching change and all that kind of stuff.
Well, we always talk about it's hard to win a football game. It's hard to win them all. And you got two undefeated teams. Only the second time there's two undefeated teams. Fourth time there's two undefeated teams since you started the two-team playoff with the old BCS and now the four teams. It's only the second time there's no SEC team in the final. So that's been duly noted. But no, so Michigan and Washington, they've won all the football games they played. Like you said, Washington had some close calls, far more close calls than Michigan. Contrast in styles, I think it's gonna be a heck of a game next Monday night. I'll tune in. I'm not a big fan of Michigan at all or Harbaugh at all, so I'll be pulling for Washington. I'll probably bet on Washington, but I hope it's a good football game.
We got so much more to talk about. We'll get to it on Friday. We'll be back with more Sports Shorts Daily. Until then, we'll talk a lot more Saints and all the scenarios and everything for the Saints to possibly end up in the playoffs. I personally, Tommy, don't think they're going to end up in the playoffs. I have a little wager with Casey McKenzie on that. To win the division, they simply have to win the game, and they need the Bucs to lose to the Carolina Panthers, the worst team in the NFL, just about. I don't think that's going to happen. And then if the Bucs, if they happen to win and the Bucs win, then they have another scenario of getting the playoffs, and that is simply Seattle has to lose and to the Cardinals, who are awful, even though the Cardinals beat the Eagles this past week, and the Packers have to lose to the Chicago Bears. Chicago has a losing record. The irony is that I think what's going to happen, Tommy, is the Saints are going to beat the Falcons, and then we're going to look back at pick 3 games they could have easily won this year, including the Packers game when they were up 17-0, and in the fourth quarter lost the game and still had a chance to win it if they make a 43, 45-yard field goal. They missed that. So, so much woulda, coulda, shoulda on the season, but that Packers game is the one that we said it then it was going to haunt them, and it's absolutely going to haunt them this year.
Yeah, I agree with that. Be interested to see how that goes. Of course, we'll talk more about that on Friday and on Sports Shorts Radio on Saturday. So we'll cover a lot of ground. But once again, I want to tell everybody Happy New Year from the Sports Shorts Daily crew. We appreciate when you listen, when you like and share. We appreciate all that. And we're looking forward to big things here in 2024.
LeBears was an amazing time. The New Year's Eve over at LeBears is the best party in town. Just remember that. So in the future, if you're ever like, what am I going to do on New Year's Eve? Go to LeBears. The weather's always good, right? It's inside, and they always.
Did I see a video of you singing?
No, I was on stage emceeing.
Okay, now I thought that was a video of you singing.
No, I was on stage emceeing the event. Did the drop. Oh, Old Lang Syne. I like on the microphone. Me and the lead singer Werewolf. We sang like 5 seconds of Old Lang Syne because we were we were mumbling the words because, of course, nobody knows all the words to Old Lang Syne unless you got a karaoke machine in front of you. So we were just humming, Old Lang Syne. But anyway, no, it was Werewolf pulled on a great concert. They played 11-1. We did the ball drop, 1,000 people in the ballroom. We did the confetti cannons and all that at midnight, and so it was a lot of fun. And so had a great time over at LeBear's, bringing in the new year. Well, lastly, if you're a baseball fan, if you're a supporter of Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame, if your son or daughter is a LSU freak, next Tuesday, January 9th, go to lasportshall.com. We've got the event for you. It's Champions of the Diamond. And this is very simply where the greats, the folks that have won World Series, and some of them are going to be there, like Roger Clemens, Dylan Cruz, Todd Walker, Ryan Theriot. They're going to be on stage, and we're going to do a Q&A with them and hear all the great stories. You folks will be able to meet them, take pictures, all that kind of stuff. And then we're going to have we'll have the coaches before them. We're going to have all, championship coaches, the Skip Bertmans, the Paul Maneris, the Jay Johnsons, Mike Bianco, who won 3 as an assistant at LSU, 1 as a head coach at Ole Miss. They're going to be there. And then there'll be a lot of other celebrities that we're going to introduce. They're going to be at the event as well. So make your plans to attend. That's the Champions of the Diamond event. Next Tuesday, it benefits Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame, open bar, food stations, band after. It's going to be an amazing time. And yes, you don't have to be 21 to get in. You can bring the kids as well, because they're going to want to see their superstars. That's at lasportshall.com. We will be back on Friday morning for more Sports Shorts Daily. For Tommy Christ, and I'm Ronnie Rance. TK, tell us about Court Street Cafe on the way out.
Court Street Cafe, Jason and the staff ready to roll for 2024. Full service bar, breakfast, lunch, dinner, 7 days a week. Just a couple of minutes over the Mississippi River Bridge. Court Street Cafe, as you see on the screen, 805 Court Street in Port Allen. Plenty of parking and a patio out front for when the weather's nice. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, a great way to keep up. Connect on Facebook and Instagram. They do a great job of posting lunch specials, dinner specials, drink specials, the whole bit. Court Street Cafe in Port Allen. We want you to check them out. As always, like and share this show. That helps us out a lot, helps all the corporate partners and sponsors. Like and share this show. We appreciate it. More Sports Shorts Daily Friday morning at 9:30. We'll talk to you then. Have a good day, everyone.